let's move on with the UBD model. Today we're going to talk about Stage 2 assessment. Overall, we have looked at the UBD model, which is 3 stages. Stage 1, identify desired results. Stage 2, determine what is going to be acceptable evidence that the students can demonstrate those desired results. And then Stage 3, based on those 2 components, you're going to plan your learning experiences and instruction. Okay, overview, Stage 1. Here's where you can start with your appropriate goals. All of your districts have standards and objectives, benchmarks that you need to meet. A lot of you talked about having standardized all of this curriculum. That is okay. You can start with that information, start with your standards, what it is that the students will need to know. It's at this point that you need to convert it into Stage 1 of the UBD model. What are the understandings that you want your students to know and be able to do as a result of this lesson? Based on that, you have to determine what are your essential questions, what are overarching questions that are lifelong, that gets them to think and ponder and question the big picture, versus more of your topical questions. What are going to be specifically related to this lesson to help guide them through learning the content of the specific lesson that you're presenting. Okay? With that, as I said, you have your goals. Now you've created your enduring understandings. You have your essential questions, topical, overarching. Based on those essential questions, what specific knowledge and skills do the students need to be able to do to answer those essential questions to get to your enduring understandings? Okay. With that in mind, we now are moving into the assessment piece, Stage 2. Sorry about that. Assessment evidence. What really is evidence that your students are understanding based on the 6 facets? Okay. What is understanding? What constitutes appropriate evidence of understanding? Just stated that. Okay. UBD identifies the 6 facets: explanation, interpretation, application, perspective, empathy, and self-knowledge. If students can do these, they have deep understanding of the content that you've presented for them. So, based on that, and based on your essential questions, understandings, and the knowledge and skills that the students will need and be able to do, what evidence can you have, what evidence to you will show that the students do understand, that they can apply the content you presented, they can interpret it, they have self-evidence and their own perspective? And how can you create situations that are going to produce that evidence? The product, the end result of whatever situation you create will lead to your understanding that the students understand. Okay? Basically, students are going to reveal deep understanding when they participate in complex, authentic opportunities to apply the facts and skills in new situations and in appropriate ways where they can get to the 6 facets of understanding. Basically, authentic assessment, real-world examples. All right? So we've stated, students really have indicators of understanding when they can explain it, when they make connections to other content, when they make connections to ideas that they've previously held. Now, whether these connections are true or false, at least they have started to anchor them within that previous understanding. Okay? When they can apply content to new situations and have points of view. The problem becomes, how do you measure all of these different things? You know, you can set up situations, real-world, authentic assessment activities for your students, but you're going to need to be able to measure these. Okay? Basically, how we're going to do that? 3 forms. Performance tasks, overarching understandings. Your performance task is going to be your large assessment component. You can also have other evidence. The other evidence is a little bit more specific. It's targeted to the knowledge and skills of your lesson. These are your tests, your quizzes, observations, formal, informal. Okay? And then finally at the end, usually there's some sort of self-assessment and or a reflection for the students in order to get to that deeper self-realization stage in the 6 facets of understanding. Okay. Performance tasks. We all know what performance tasks are. In the UBD model, you heavily want to rely on real-life, realistic examples, projects that you have your students do. Okay? When you're designing a real-world example, you want to make sure that whatever project you create for the student, it has a real-world audience, something that is beyond the basic classroom, something beyond what you would just have them do for an assignment. Okay? This performance assessment and task will require judgment, innovation on their part, and it provides plenty of opportunities for the students to practice the content, to practice the real-world activity, and to get feedback. Now, feedback can be both from peers as well as from you, the instructor. Okay? Here's a sample performance task. Okay, the students are doing literary readings. So the students will select either the Watson Go to Birmingham or Anne Frank as a basis from the two texts that they've read, and they're going to have to propose a reality show that will follow them around for 2 months and create a documentary showing what's changed in their lives and history. Similar to the idea of the movie The Diary of Anne Frank. Okay? Very real-world example. A lot of times we're making documentaries of students' lives. Right now, we're making reality shows. It's a great combination of the two. But what it has to do for the student is really put them in place of the director. They have to understand both stories to a deep level that they're going to be able to decide what part of their lives they want to film, why, and be able to explain why it is historically important. Okay? And then at the end, obviously, when you're given a performance task, you want to go through the criteria. How are you going to grade them? How are they going to be evaluated? Let them know up front what it is that they need to do in order to be successful. Hopefully there's not anything new in this. I'm sure you've all done lots of performance tasks in your time as instructors. So, quick overview. The UBD model provides a template, as it does in all facets of designing the UBD model. When designing a performance task, UBD asks you to consider the grasps. What is the goal of the performance tasks? Identify what role the student is going to be playing. Tell them who the audience is going to be. Present a situation the students might find themselves in, some type of challenge, something that they can identify with on a personal level. They're going to be creating a product or performance or have some purpose that the students will need to be able to create. In the process of creating this product, they're going to get to the 6 facets of understanding. Okay? And then at the end, obviously, provide the standards for success. How are they going to be evaluated? Okay? Sample grasp performance task. I'm going to upload this to the website. You can read through it. Again, I believe you all have done performance tasks in the past. You've probably used a model similar to this. But looking at UBD, the grasp really puts it into a step-by-step process. Okay? Grasp terms, also straight from the book. And then finally, you're going to look about how do you evaluate these performance tasks. As we all know, what do we do? For performance tasks in education, we're looking at rubrics. There are 2 basic types of scoring instruments. One is a checklist. Did you do A, B, C, D, and E? These are nice for younger kids. It just gives them a yes or no binary answer. Did you include this in your performance task or did you not? What doesn't it do? It doesn't provide a whole lot of feedback for the students. Okay? For that, we're going to use rubrics. Okay? We're going to look at either an analytical rubric or some type of holistic, overarching rubric for the assignment. You've all designed rubrics in the past. I'm not going to go into a lot of that, but we are going to cover just basically what's involved in a rubric, the difference between holistic and analytical. All right? Rubrics are not checklists. They show levels of quality from beginner to mastery or an advanced level. It communicates the different standards that are available, and it lists all of the criteria, the indicators, that you're going to be grading them on in relationship to the level of quality. Let's look at an example. All right. Here's a generic rubric template. On the top, you can see the scale. This is where you would identify not present, beginner, intermediate, and advanced. Down the left-hand side is where you're going to include all of your criteria. Student presented a personal point of view. The presentation had 17 elements of multimedia design that were covered in class. And inside each of these indicators is the criteria for getting the score. So for criteria 1, if I'm not present, nothing was present in the presentation. If I'm a beginner, write out what indicates that you're a beginner for this criteria. This is the most difficult part. You don't want to be too subjective, but you also don't want to be too precise in saying it has to have A, B, and C, because it doesn't allow creativity on the student's part. So you're going to have to try and figure out how to do one of each. Here is an analytical rubric sample. A holistic rubric, again, better for younger kids. It just talks about your score is a 5, you have all of the tasks and understanding of the problem, all the way down to 0, nothing was represented. Doesn't really provide a lot of feedback for the students on how to better themselves and how to get to that self-awareness, self-reflection component that we're looking for in the 6 facets of understanding. Okay, a lot of formative assessment. The students need plenty of opportunity to get ongoing formative assessment for how well they're doing in their performance task. As educators, you're quite well aware you don't want to wait until the very end in order to provide feedback to your students. Okay? And then at the end, you might want to ask your students some type of self-reflection assignment. What did you feel? How did you think that Anne Frank felt during her whole time that she was there? To go back to our Anne Frank example. Okay, example, performance tasks and the 6 facets of understanding. I'll upload this to the website so you can look a little bit deeper, but an explanation, you might have the students write a letter home describing what the pioneer life is really like compared to what you expected, all the way down to self-knowledge. Write a self-assessment reflecting on your writing process, what worked, what didn't, what kind of things do you want to change in the future and work on. Okay? Stage 3, UBD, how to design your lesson. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in discussion question 2. Basically, the UBD model provides the where-to standard. Just like GRASPs, you answer each of the questions to guide you into how do you design a lesson plan. The where, what, and why. H, the hook. Explore and experience. R, you're going to rethink and revise, give the students plenty of opportunity to practice. You're going to have an evaluation. You're going to tailor it to the techniques for their learning styles. Here's where you're going to get into differentiated instruction. And then finally, you're going to make sure that your sequences are organized in such a way that it's going to maximize the effectiveness of your lesson. If this looks familiar, Gagne. Gagne is really how to design specific lessons, such as the where-to model, stage 3 of UBD. ADDIE would be the entire UBD model, and I think the Gagne's events of instruction refer right here to stage 3. You're wondering why I had you do Gagne for the last one. Hopefully you were starting to see where Gagne doesn't fully fit into the UBD model, that you have bigger picture, bigger ideas to think about, your enduring understandings. Gagne didn't get to enduring understandings. Okay? I realize this was kind of a long introduction. I apologize for that. We're going to move forward into the discussion questions and really pull apart the performance tasks and the where-to design in discussions for the rest of this week. And then your final assessment, your individual project for the week is going to be really taking your original UBD model and putting it into the fully developed UBD template that I'll send to you later this week. You're going to follow stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. You're going to develop the where-to based on where you began. Okay? If you have any questions, as usual, send me an email, contact me on Skype. Thanks.